Welcome back to the GameBlocks tutorials. This tutorial is about creating cutscenes and more broadly how to coordinate multiple sprites and activities together into one script so that your logic is in one place. So to do that, I've created a few blocks to make it easy to tell other sprites to do things. So we're going to do all the logic. We'll do it all in Sprite 1 and talk to Sprite 2. And I might just code it as though we're talking to both sprites, so we'll just see how it goes. So in BYOB adds some blocks that let you execute other code. This is some of the more programmery type of stuff that's added, which you mostly won't want to worry about too much. But there's run, which basically runs some commands and waits for them to stop. You can do that. That'll work in your current sprite. Or launch. Launch launches them, but then returns immediately. So it kind of like puts these blocks in some kind of never world in the background, and they just keep running. And so those two basic ways of running things are embodied in sometimes not so obvious ways in other blocks. So there's this tell command here, which will actually invoke launch under the hood. So if you tell a sprite to do something with this tell block, this is from BYOB, it'll launch that command, but it'll just keep running. It'll keep going. So that isn't quite what we want. We want to be able to have a conversation unfold. We want to wait for the line of dialogue to end and then trigger the next line of dialogue and that sort of thing. So I've created explicit, pardon me a second, that was a child. So I have created a series of blocks here that embodies both concepts separately. So we have launch on sprites. So you might use something like this if you wanted to have an explosion with a bunch of different sprites shooting out in different directions. So they would launch that command on all the sprites at once, and they'd all just run. To be completely clear, each of these loops in order, so there could be some slight delay between when each of those commands gets fired off. But that's more important for run on sprite. So running on a sprite will run the command and wait for it to end, and run on sprites will run on multiple sprites and wait for the command to end. But in waiting for the command to end, it'll actually wait for each sprite in turn. So if you were to do an explosion inside here, you'd see one piece of the explosion go, and then it would stop, and the next piece would go. So you would want to use the other one. So okay, so what we want to do for a cutscene is just use a single sprite. We're just going to talk to a single sprite. We're not going to launch, we're going to run. So run on sprite. So we'll just trigger this whole thing when the game starts. So when the game starts, we'll run on a particular sprite. And let's just start out by telling, we'll just code this as though we're in yet a third place. So we'll tell sprite 1 to come into the scene. So we identify that sprite, and this is the one tricky part of the syntax. We actually have to refer to that sprite a special way as an object. You would think you could just grab him and plop him right in there, right? But that doesn't quite work that way. You need to use this object bubble, put that in there, and then you can pull down his name from here. So we're going to talk to sprite 1. That's parallel to the way you deal with variables, right? You have to use the pull down to really access the variable and be sure you're putting the data in the right place. So we're going to run on this sprite. We're going to tell the sprite to go to a starting position, so we'll get some motion blocks. Go to a certain location. Let's put him where we want him. We'll start him over here. Starting position would be -233, -54. And then we'll have him glide in to the scene to another spot. We'll have him glide in here. And let's see here. 1 second to, we want to be 2 seconds, and we want to be -89, -28. Really? Okay. I'll have him go in at an angle, but that's fine. Okay, so then when the game starts, he should just do that. So, yeah. So not too surprising, we're actually in our sprite, so it's not too mind-blowing. And so we could have the other character do the same thing. Do I want to do that? Let's do it in order. I mean, there are ways to get this to happen in parallel, but let's just illustrate the concept by telling sprite 2 to do something similar. We'll have to change her numbers. We want her to end up here, so that is, we got to go to her to get those numbers, don't we? I don't know why this machine is so slow. 120, negative 27. 120, negative 127. 120, negative 127. Negative 127. Okay, and our starting position, we just guess. Maybe we should just guess. Let's say she starts at 233. Okay. So then, and you know what? We probably want her to start there sooner, don't we? Oops, didn't want to run it. Let's confuse everybody. So you know what we want to do? We want to tell her to move there right away. So we want to tell her to move there. That's not going to take much time. It's just going to put her there. He'll walk in, and then we'll have her walk in. So I'm splitting up these commands basically. So you pull these apart. When you pull things apart, you always want to grab below. You have to grab below what you want to separate. So who knows what position I've got here now. Let's just see if this looks at all right. Yeah, you have to go to the wrong location. Let's change her Y. I'm just going to guess it's going to be near 0 or 10. Alright. Anyway, that'll be close enough. So you get the idea. You can tell one sprite to do something, wait for it to end, tell the next sprite to do something, and then we can have them talk to each other. So you can do this, use the same commands to have characters talk to each other, but I have created some special blocks for making that a little bit cleaner. So we will have the actor say something for a certain amount of time. So here's where you can use this same construct to refer to the actor. Let's have the actor 2, sprite 2, talk first. So just put this here. Well, be careful when you double click. You never know what might happen. So let's have him say hello, or her say hello. You'll notice when these blocks, sometimes you have to click really far to left to get to where you can enter text. Just something to be aware of. This also takes a certain amount of time. We'll do that for 2 seconds. Then we'll have the other actor say something. Again, right-clicking to duplicate makes things go faster. Just go to the pull down. We're already having the other sprite say something, and so then we should have pretty much the beginnings of a cutscene. So this may seem really simple, and hopefully that's the way it is. It's supposed to be simple. In Scratch and earlier versions of BYOB, the syntax was not quite as friendly. You often had to do message passing back and forth and timing of when dialogue appeared and stuff. So this just puts it all in order, very, very straightforwardly. You can kind of look at the whole scene. If you want to add another command at the end, you just grab another one of these run commands, and you're set to go. So I don't think I'll go much further than that. That gives you the concept. This is for cutscenes, but this also can be used for any kind of character dialogue in a game. You don't always stop the game and do a cutscene. You can make things happen in parallel to the player. The player could be running around doing stuff while these characters are talking, for instance. This could also be used to create a talk tree. So in here you could be unhiding a bunch of sprites to show the choices. There's a separate tutorial on a way to do that, but essentially this kind of structure could be used to control multiple sprites to do a variety of things. So with that, I hope you enjoy making cutscenes. So one advanced topic for creating cutscenes would be how to use some of these other multi-sprite blocks here for talking to more than one sprite. So I'll do the explosion example I talked about. So instead of running on one sprite at a time, what if we wanted to tell a whole bunch of sprites to do something at one time? So we could use this launch on sprites. Again, launches something and just lets it run in the background and just lets your script continue, whereas run will start the command and wait for it to end and then let your script continue. So this is a different case where we just want everything to happen at once. So we want to launch on sprites. Now this here, this little symbol means you need to put a list in here. So this is the one complicated part of this syntax. You need to actually create a list of the sprites. And it's not so bad. You grab this list bubble here. This will create a list for you. And what you pass in is the names of the sprites. We don't have to pass in the objects themselves, so that keeps the syntax a little bit cleaner at least. So we'll just name them. What we're going to pass in is these little fragments here. These fragments are part of like a firework or something. So frag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's frag 1. You just click these arrows here to add or remove items from the list. Frag 2. Frag 3. Frag 4, and we guess what's going to come next? Frag 5. Okay. So we'll tell all these sprites to do something at once, and we'll make them glide off somewhere. So I'm going to glide. 1 second. Let's enjoy our explosion for at least 2 seconds. Alright, so this would make them all go to a certain location. I guess we could just define something here, 200 by 200. And let's see what happens. Oh, you know, this isn't going to run because I haven't put a start block on it. Let's just double click it. They all go together off to that location. So that's a good start, but we want them to explode out. So we want to do a couple things. Of course, at the start of this sequence, let's just do it as a sequence, not make it part of the game. We just want to tell them all to go to a starting point. So let's duplicate this command. First thing we're going to do is pass in a command to go to the middle of the... Well, that's kind of strange. I can't put it in from above. Alright, we can attach from the bottom now. Okay. Get rid of that. We'll put a go to command. No, you can't quite see the list over here. There we go. So let's go to 0, 0. And then we'll make them explode. So let's not do that now. Yeah. So it'll make them go to there and then do the explosion. So for the explosion, let's instead of going to 0, 200, 200, let's go to a random place for each of them. So we'll pick a random from one number to the other. We want it to be away from where we're at, but we want it to be positive or negative. So we'll do, for now, we actually need another term, an additional, a plus term to kind of do this explosion right, but let's just go ahead and pick a random position from like negative 150. This is for X, this is the first position, to positive 150. So we're starting at 0, 0, and then we'll go up or down based on what this picks. And we'll just right click and duplicate it and use it for Y2. So let's double click. This will start out at 0, 0 and then tell them each to go somewhere random. Look at that. Woo! So there you go. This is what I would call an advanced use of these blocks for a cutscene. This will let you control multiple entities at one time. And notice that it's actually running this code, right? So even though you would think maybe it would pick a random number and then run it on all the sprites equally and send them all to the same place, it actually runs this code. So you can, have the sprites themselves take some initiative of their own. Maybe you pass in a value to them and they then use that to calculate what they need to do exactly. But you can do things in parallel in an easy way across multiple sprites. Without this wrapper block, you would have to send a message out into the system, and then each of these sprites would have to have a script in it that was waiting for that message to do something. This way you can keep it all in one place and see what your animation is going to do, and mix that in with dialogue or whatever you need to create the scene.